Welcome back to Geeker Reviews. I'm your host, Michael Wilkerson, and today I'm going to be reviewing and breaking down Season 1, Episode 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a show that at the time when they first announced I was pretty hesitant on. It was coming off of the first Avengers movie. I knew Joss Whedon was involved. I was a little bit intrigued about it just because he was kind of involved with that, but knowing what he would go on to do in later movies like Justice League and all that and having problems, I eventually almost kind of gave up on the show, but I decided as now that I'm grown up, I want to go back and revisit it a little bit more and see if it actually has held up or if I still felt like a lot of the criticisms I had watching this first season. But we'll start with this pilot and seeing how it goes, because when this first pilot was airing, from what all I really remember was that it was a bunch of Avengers references. It was taking place after the events of the first Avengers movie, after the Battle of New York. And taking down the Chitauri and Loki and all of that. And that's pretty much all I really knew. Other than that, I didn't really know much about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really. I knew that S.H.I.E.L.D. was like a main, big kind of thing in the Marvel universe, and this is where a lot of them kind of group and talk about cases and stuff like that. And I think that's what this show was kind of based around, was them trying to solve cases, almost like a procedural type thing, but them uncovering more weird Chitauri alien related type of things beyond just being like a murderer or something like that. So I was kind of intrigued to see what they were going to go with this. And when I sat down to watch it, I'd say for the most part it was a lot of what I remember, so some good, some bad. But let's kind of start with the overall narrative. So the first thing that they show is Skye. Essentially, she's a character that is a mobile command type person. She works for this thing called Riptide, and she basically just kind of runs out almost like a investigative journalist for the city of California in this show when they first pick up. And she's essentially getting people on video. So she saw this person, Mike Peterson, I believe, which they try to develop into a everyday kind of guy, but he has powers. He basically is saving a woman from a burning building, and I thought that was pretty cool to see, but I was wondering where he kind of got these powers from. They never really explained that. They just kind of threw you into it, and that's, I guess, fine. But I think, for the most part, when they set it up, it was pretty intriguing to see an everyday kind of guy with a son have powers. And I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting setup for a plot. Let's see where this goes. And so, to my surprise, when they revealed that, Skye, I should say, Chloe's the actress that plays Skye, but Skye essentially works for Riptide, and they have that interrogation with Ward and Coulson. I thought, them kind of unveiling, this idea of Centipede and what was that going to be about. They really never really explained what Centipede was, but I thought it was kind of an intriguing plot, so I was going to see where that goes. And I thought it was an effective way to bring her into the show, bring her into the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, having that kind of person that's on the streets looking over and investigating, strange people. I thought that made sense for a character. For Ward, he is more that assassin. When we do pick up, we see Ward in an assassination type setting. I think there's this bar and restaurant underneath a apartment or a house or something. And they had this weird Jason Bourne type of moment with him when he's taking out all these hostile and gunmen. And I thought that was a cool action sequence. It established that he's basically a part of this world. And he's essentially an agent, and he has that experience down, which I thought was, again, an effective way to bring him into the world. Made sense, and he was a pretty good standout. I didn't think it was really needed, but I guess they did want to do some sort of action sequence to, start the pilot off in a big way as well. I thought tying it back into the Avengers was an interesting choice. It does fit for the show, but I think to more of a negative reaction for me, just because I feel like they just use it to just reference the Avengers every single point that they get in the series, and that kind of takes away the show, where I feel like the show is at its strongest when it's trying to do its own thing and establish its characters and world, versus trying to appeal to, this is connected to Thor or Iron Man or to Captain America or to Hulk or to the Avengers or to the Chitauri. And I didn't think it really needed to be that way. I thought it was just a way for them to, kind of bring back in viewers that were fans of Marvel Universe, but again, do it in a more like throw in your face type of way rather than fan service, if that made sense. But yeah, other than that, I think when they first started out, getting the team together, I thought that was pretty cool. My only gripe with the series when I had going into it was how they were going to handle Phil Coulson's death, how he's going to come back. I really hope they didn't pull the whole Marvel kill card or Marvel fake death card and, fake his own death. But that's exactly what they did. They they had Nick Fury, I guess, hid some sort of like file that showed that he faked his own death or something. I have no idea. It's convoluted and bullshit, but at the same time, I was just like, why are they faking Phil Coulson's death? That so undercuts everything that he did in the Avengers movie and trying to bring them together. That's their whole motivation as to why they had to stop Loki and the Chitauri. Obviously, he was blowing up New York, yes, and they had to avenge it, but Phil Coulson died under their watch. So it's like they have a responsibility to him. So if they just bring him back into the fold, why the hell are they even like, what was the point of, faking what was the point of him dying if they were just going to fake his own death, if that made sense? I don't know. Other than that, I think the whole, the villain, I thought Mike was pretty good. They really developed him a lot throughout this episode. So has a kid, as they established at the beginning of the episode, but as this episode kind of goes on, we see him essentially going to the factory where he gets fired from. He gets evicted from his apartment. He goes through like a lot of really bad situations in his life, and it essentially turns him over to villain mode, and he's essentially someone who has to stop. And I thought, for the most part, it works effectively for what they're trying to tell, but it is, in a way, it is kind of over the top too at the same time. But I guess it is a thing that only this show can really go into. But yeah, I thought, for the most part, them, really trying to protect Mike as the SHIELD agents and not have him, blow up, I thought it was an effective choice. Made sense. They were trying to protect people from not getting hurt, essentially, but they also were trying to save Mike at the end of it and add some depth and layer that it needed. But in a way, I did feel bad for Mike. I think, it's that kind of like Vulture thing from Spider-Man Homecoming where they try to really make him a sympathetic guy. They're getting screwed over by the government, screwed over by society, etc. Like, I thought that made so much sense. Just, screwing with the everyday guy. And I thought that's what made him relatable. Him having a son and just trying to be the best dad he can, but also having that added layer of him trying to disguise his identity made sense to me. But yeah, overall, I would say this was a pretty effective pilot. They established a lot of people. Fitz and Simmons, they're taking a minute to grow on me. I thought they were pretty cute. They had this whole thing of like Fitz was like agreed to like this weapon, but then Simmons was more against it, I think. And, they shattered reservations and, they're cute, but they added this thing. What I do like about them is that they are at least like scientist type people and have that kind of nerdy, quirky vibe that I am kind of a sucker for. Like, it does remind me of the early days of The Flash with Barry Allen being that nerdy kind of weird guy at a crime scene. This is kind of those people for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where a majority of people are either like, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents looking over people or looking over these guys, investigating them, or like the government, or it's just more like, Skye's character in the Mobile Command and being it like having her eyes on the ground. And these people were in a way just the scientists, the kind of comic relief and kind of the cuteness of the show. I'm pretty sure they become a couple later, so from what I remember, but I think they fit well. Like, I think Fitz is engineering and Simmons is a biochem, so I think like it adds some science and engineering minds to the team, which I always like. It's a different dynamic compared to the more straightforward kind of exposition that the SHIELD agents give for, the case they're solving for the week, or the person they're going to be looking after, going after, whatever the weird thing that's they need to investigate. But yeah, I think it balances out. So yeah, overall, I'm going to give this pilot a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it for the most part. There were some things that, again, they're trying to be pleasing too much to the Marvel fans and being like, well, let me throw in references to Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, to Loki, to Chari. Like, in one sense, I get it, but at the same time, I also like I get it because like it takes place after the events of the Avengers movie, and like so there's going to be some sort of fallout, and people are going to talk about that, sure. But at the same time, I wish it wasn't so in your face about it. But overall, I'd say like it was a pretty solid like team up for the pilot. I'm excited to see where they take the storyline for the rest of the season. But let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite part and least favorite part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, Episode 1? If you enjoy the review, as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys in the next Geek Reviews video. Peace.